I know I hit you up last night.
Yeah, very late.
I know, very late. I look, dude, you know I don't sleep, right? Like, you know that
You don't sleep, but when I text you, you don't answer.
Yeah, but you texted me in the middle of the afternoon and shit.
Exactly.
Right? But when do I text you back? At like 1 o'clock in the morning and shit.
Yes.
Right? So and then with Zeke too, what time did I text last night saying, Zeke, bro, look into some of this stuff?
Shit, like 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it was like 8 or 9 last night, right? When I woke up. Because usually I sleep during the day like a goddamn vampire.
Yes, sir, you do.
Alrighty, hopping into the multiverse.
But yes, so I wanted to hop into the multiverse. Now, the reason this kind of came up to me is I was watching a couple of different videos this weekend, and I was looking at one of my all-time favorite physicists, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Right? Like, this dude is brilliant. He's been on Rogan's show a couple of different times, and I just see this guy as such a brilliant mind. Like, let me ask you a real quick question. Let me just ask you this, just to start, before we get into multiverse. Why does ice float?
It's because it's less dense than water.
But why? Why is it less dense than water? Because most things, when they freeze, they become more compact.
It's because of the atoms.
And
so the atoms are compacting and expanding, right?
All right.
So when it expands, it creates less mass than the water.
Yes.
Because it's spreading those atoms across.
The hydrogen atoms. And do you know about approximate percentage of how much doesn't, the difference between what doesn't compact and what does compact? Do you know approximate amount?
It's like 0.00000 something.
That's about. It's so when you're talking about water and ice, water is one of the only things that when it freezes, it actually creates more mass. Mm-hmm. It's one of the only liquids that does that. So when water freezes, the hydrogen atoms, they just happen to create in such a way when they freeze that they create more mass. So if you take an ice cube and you throw it in a cup of water, you have about 10% of the ice that's above the water, right? So now that is the only part that has expanded, really. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now when that ice melts, it's only going to take up 10% more of that volume. So now when people talk about, global warming, if the ice caps melt, we're going to be fucking flooded. It's not true, actually. If you actually think about it, the ice caps, if they are all ice, then if they do melt, now this isn't taking into account of all the ice in the world other than the ice caps melt. If those melt, it's going to flood the world and destroy all life. No, because only 10% of that water, of that ice is above water. So if the ice caps both melted, the water would stay the same. Because if I tell you, here is a glass of water, fill it almost all the way to the top, throw your cube of ice in. You throw your cube of ice in, and it's right at the very top, at the very limit. Mm-hmm. The very limit. Like any more water you drop, one more ounce of water in, it's going to flow over the sides, right? And that ice is in there. When that ice melts, what happens?
It's just going to go back down.
It's going to go down just a little bit, right? Same thing with the polar ice caps. So when people talk about this global warming stuff, they're not talking about the ice caps melting. They're talking about like Greenland and Iceland and everywhere else. If that ice melts, then we're fucked. Then you're talking about the water goes up to the elbow of the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
That high, right? But if it's just the ice caps that melt, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. There is no volume difference in the water. So sorry, I got off on that, but that was the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing that he talked about. And absolutely, dude, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like,
I get you.
No shit, bro. But anyway, let's talk about multiverse.
Yeah, the whole topic of the multiverse in general, it's a hard concept to wrap your brain around just because like the human brain isn't evolutionary equipped to handle the understanding the quantum mechanics of it. Mm-hmm. So quantum mechanics and quantum physics, that's understanding the small aspects of it, right? You know, we all watched Ant-Man, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely, right.
It wasn't a crock of shit. It was that's legit.
That's the thing, right? Like that, like it was. They're talking about the quantum universe, right? The quantum realm, but it's not actual bullshit. It seemed like bullshit because it's a science fiction movie, but it's actually something that exists that scientists think exists, correct?
Yeah. I wouldn't even say think. I think it's definitely proven to exist. It's just one of those things that we just don't have the organs to perceive it, if that makes sense. But the whole idea of where this whole multiverse originated, this is back in like ancient Greek times. So in ancient Greek, they like to study the philosophy known as atomism. So it's like studying, it's where the physical world is composed of fundamental indivisible components that are known as atoms, right? So like that's where we discovered that everything has atoms in it, right? Everything consists of it. And that brings back to the 3rd century BC philosopher Chrysippus. He proposed the idea that everything's made of atoms, and it just continues to go up the ladder. So you shrink down. If you shrink down, you can see the atoms, right? We can see that this table is composed of atoms, right?
Right.
And then his theory of what he composed was that how we are living now are atoms itself.
How far back was this?
3rd century BC.
So 3rd century BC, they were even talking about things possibly made up of atoms and not just solid.
Right. And
I've never heard
then
that. That's kind of cool.
Big thing, and this is so all the way back then. Another one, more recent time of them talking about it. At least this whole multiverse theory was in 1952 with Erwin Schrödinger. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but he's a philosopher, and he actually warned his class that he was teaching that what he's about to propose seems pretty lunatic because it just seems like it's ramblings of a crazy person, right? But he said with his equations that he's written out and has been teaching and learning for his entire life, they seem to describe different histories that go on, and there aren't its own alternative histories that are going on, right? In our own timeline. We'll go with that to base it off of.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that...
So like there wasn't just a World War II. There was a World War II that happened at the same time. They're both existing in the same space at the same time, right?
So there are different universes that branch off.
Right.
Did they say that maybe in World War II, a different army won in this particular
right.
World
So
War II?
where it could have the different discrepancies, so that quantum fluctuation on it. But what he was proposing is that with everything that's going on, so like us talking in this podcast right now, there's also another reality where that same exact thing's happening. So it's happening simultaneously. So it's that duality of it. So it's called superposition, and that's just really hard for us again for us just to wrap our brains around evolutionary. But yeah, that's basically the idea that there's multiple things going on at the same exact time. Which that actually leads me into my next theory that I had thought about on my own, but I was watching different clips and stuff that help fine tune how to explain it. So there's a theory that the deja vu theory. So the theory claims that every time that you experience deja vu, you're actually going in a crossover of those different timelines and of those different realities, and it's intersecting at the same time.
So at the same time, but if I'm experiencing deja vu, it means when you say, oh, deja vu, you've experienced it before. This is one of the big things I have with this multiverse thing when they talk about deja vu, that there are different multiverses and different realities of you in that same one. If I'm experiencing something and I say deja vu, holy shit, I've had that happen to me before. To me, that says that I have experienced that before. Not at the same time that my spirit or whatever you want to say is experiencing it, and something else is experiencing it. This thing has experienced it before me, and now I'm all of a sudden experiencing it myself because I've experienced it before.
Right.
It doesn't matter it doesn't mean that we're experiencing it at the same time. That's why I look at this and I say, this whole multiverse thing, are they alternate timelines and we are behind a little?
I mean, I believe that it's past, present, future, all that's just one timeline. It's all coexisting all at once. So, and how I see that, how I propose for that whole deja vu thing is that it ties into kind of another theory that like when you die, so there's one conscious soul that you're in that you have right now. There's evidence of that. We've talked about it before on previous episodes. And there's a theory that when you die, that your soul transfers itself, plops itself into another universe where you didn't die in that situation. Say, you ever been in a situation where you like cross the road and a car barely hits you and you see yourself dying and like you saw it, right? And then you walk away.
I've been shot at before where I should have been dead. And
right?
I was alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And you had that feeling. You're like, wow, I shouldn't be
dead.
Here. Yeah. And that's the theory that you did die in that universe. Your consciousness, your collective consciousness decided to transfer itself to that other dimension or that other worldly possibilities. Where I find evidence for that, that makes some sense to me, is that when you die, your brain releases DMT. Joe Rogan talked about it several times about it.
Yep. No, I watched a couple of them last night. And it's something, like I said, that really gets me. We talked about before. I've never smoked weed, but if I go on Joe Rogan's show, I'll smoke weed with him.
Right.
But anyway, go ahead.
And your brain releases that DMT, and there's a theory that releases that gateway, so that helps, have your soul move on to that next dimension or that next world. Yeah. So, like with that being said, that's 3 different theories proposed, but all interconnecting, right? So there's so many. That's like one of those how we were talking about with the elevator lobby, where the evidence is stacking up. That's one of those things. The evidence stack up. I believe in the multiverse. So that's the only thing that makes sense.
But once again, there's no real evidence to prove that any of it exists.
Yeah, but with Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about it. His theory on it, he doesn't think that we'll ever be able to experience another multiverse, another reality, because it does vary from us, and it could be completely that our genetic makeup is not the same. So like our atoms aren't vibrating at the same frequency.
But isn't that an easy way just to
it could be, but it's not. It's not wrong. It's definitely an easy way, but it's not wrong. So if you step out of, we'll say Earth A, us, Earth B, and it's all the same, except the only major difference is that it's positioned 3 inches to the left on where it rotates from the sun, right? There's still going to be so many different discrepancies with it, so many differences.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Once again, look, now my thoughts on Neil deGrasse Tyson. That guy is a fucking brilliant dude. I love everything he says. But even I look at that and I say, okay, well, prove it. You can't prove it.
Yeah, you can't. That's one of those things I don't think we'll ever be able to.
No, and there's a thing, right? So I can make up shit. Like I've said before in other ones. Dinosaurs died from eating grapes. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
That's a good point.
You can't fucking prove me wrong. I can make up whatever theory I fucking want that might sound real or might sound plausible. And you can't ever, because there's no ability to show that I'm wrong. There's none. There's no ability to show I'm wrong. Now, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he has a couple of different with his. So there's a guy, Max Tegmark, right? So I watched a couple of documentaries, Max Tegmark, where Neil deGrasse Tyson was interviewing him on his feelings about a multiverse, and most people think that there's like this parallel universe to what we're running right now, right? So in other words, there's a me here in this universe. There's another me in this universe, right? But not to get too deep into it, let me ask you a question. So who's the real me?
Both are. I don't know. The theories that all the research that I've done on it, you both are. It's just who you don't know.
Okay.
The collective consciousness. There's theory that there, like how I said that your soul's in one, but it transfers it to another whenever. So you're having that infinite life, right?
Okay.
There's also another theory where it's all happening at the same exact time. So you couldn't know.
So would we all die at the exact same time?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but I think if there's infinite, then no.
Then somebody's going to die at some point in time. So at some point in time, there's a real you. There's a real you, and those consciousnesses either go away or they're transferred to that particular one that's the real consciousness.
I think it just goes full circle. You've always been the real you. It just goes and you're going through and transporting it.
You think I'm split into, let's say, there's 15 different multiverses.
Right.
So there's a my consciousness that's split within 15 different multiverses. And each one of those has their own path.
Kind of. Think about how we had talked about on off air, right? When you were having to take medication for your sleep, right? You had to take Ambien. And you had that autopilot. You weren't conscious for that. You didn't know what was going on, but your body did it. So I think that's how it is when your soul's there in that your respected reality, we'll say point A, then you're able to experience it, right? And so your consciousness goes through wherever it pleases, whether it's dying or however it goes through. And that's where we find the different paradigm shifts, the Mandela effects and all that go through.
See, and I just think that it maybe it's because our minds aren't equipped to understand.
I think that could very much be the
because
situation
it very well might be, right? Because if I look at that and from what you just said and how you explained it, every one of my particular consciousness, let's say there's 15 different multiverses, right? And that's all there is. Each one of those 15 thinks that they are it. Right?
Right.
Like, I think I'm it. I'm it. That's all there is to it. There's never been another me. There's never going to be another me. It's me.
Right.
Every one of us think that. So one of those within the 15 dies and it goes away. That consciousness then does what? It's got to come to one of the 14 of us that's left. Or does it? Or does it just disappear? And then what happens if I'm the last guy and mine dies, where does it go? What happens?
It's a good point. I don't know. I feel like that's a good point right there. I don't know.
Right? Like, see, there.
If we want to go the whole science aspect of it, where energy can't be destroyed nor created, it doesn't die. Period. It just goes around. Right. Your physical body might, but your soul doesn't. So.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. If let's say we have 15 of us, one of us goes away, and that particular remaining consciousness has to go somewhere. Where does it go? Does it go into one of the other 14? Does it go to a different place that we're all ultimately going to go?
I think that actually leads right into that reincarnation theory of that, because instead of popping it into being you, it's another collective body. You're just dropping your soul into it. That's again, like how you said a few minutes ago. Right. It's all theory. That's all it is. We don't know.
And it's all it is. Unfortunately, I don't know. I mean, I look at certain things and so once again, this Max Tegmark, he talks about, what time are we looking at?
1 more minute.
1 minute left?
If we want to finish on time, yes.
Holy shit,
God
dude.
Damn.
Well, all right. So let me lay out this really quick, and then maybe we'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish on this multiverse thing. Because this one really, dude, it really gets me when I talk about it, because on one hand, I'm going, dude, it makes sense. But then on the other hand, I'm going, oh shit, I don't know. But then there are other views on what a multiverse really is. So now a multiverse, from like movies and anything else we've seen, like Marvel, Ant-Man, or even Doctor Strange, multiverse is there are other realities or universes happening at the exact same time as ours, right? But Neil deGrasse Tyson says that there are 4 other possibilities of what a multiverse really is. The first being is that the first one are areas within our universe that are so far away, we just haven't received their light yet. So that's another universe. That's out
the
there.
Extension of our universe.
Right. It's billions of miles away. So they think that we is a planet, or about 4.5 billion years old as a planet, somewhere like around there. Right. So when the Big Bang happened, there are other planets that are out there that are billions of years ahead of us. So there are probably, if there's a planet that's 8 billion, or a star that's 8 billion light years away from us, we're at 4.5 billion years now. We still haven't received that light, right? So we don't even know that planet exists. So that's the first kind of realm of what he thinks is the level 1 multiverse. The level 2 is the theory of basically quote unquote inflation, which means that there's is it explodes and goes. There's something more diverse out there than what we know and what we accept as our personal universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's something besides what we know we describe it as a universe. There's something more. So the third one is, it goes back to what you talked about, Zeke, which is the quantum universe, which is that very small universe, which is in the movies, the Marvel movies, where they talk about the quantum realm and all those things. So those things are basically saying that our reality splits into various realities, which is what we were just talking about. Now, the biggest and the fourth level of a multiverse that Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about is basically that we are all inside of other universes. You ever seen Men in Black?
Yeah.
The very end of Men in Black, you see the little thing, and then boom, 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 and it goes out bigger universes. That's the other theory of multiverse. So anyway, I find all of them super interesting. I know we've gone way over on time, so I apologize for that. But I find it very interesting and have a lot of other stuff to talk about it. So why don't you hit the music?
They can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit as PSS After Hours. Where can they send us mail to?
Hey, send us any emails that you have. If you want to say how ugly I am, I'm completely fine with that. If you want to say how pretty Rod is and how pretty Zeke is and how pretty Kayla is, then go ahead, send us to paranormalafterhours@gmail.com. Once again, remember, be safe, watch your six, keep your powder dry, and remember, things are getting a little weird.
We're out.